Thanks for downloading another segment from the Best of the Classic Metal Show. The Classic Metal Show is heard live on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com. And now here's another piece of Classic Metal Show history on the Best of the Classic Metal Show.
The Classic Metal Show.
That's brand new Laaz Rockit from their latest release called Left for Dead, and that is a live version of Leatherface, which just happens to be a favorite of our own MOL in the chat room. And Chris, we've never had anybody from this band on the show before.
We haven't, and it's a true crime with me me being as big of a thrash fan as I am to have gone this long without Laaz Rockit on the show is just criminal.
Absolutely. Well, we want to welcome for the first time to the Classic Metal Show Michael Coons, lead singer of the band Laaz Rockit. Welcome to the Classic Metal Show, Michael.
Well, thank you, Neely and Chris. And, you still have time to, hang up and leave me out so you still don't have us on the show, But I guess that would be a crime in Chris's estimation.
Well, Chris is a huge, Bay Area thrash metal fan, as am I. He's more so than myself, only because he, resided in that area for a while, and he took in that whole scene back in the day, and, it's like old home week for him.
That's right.
Oh, right on, Chris. Where'd you live?
I lived central, right outside of Seaside and Monterey there at Fort Ord.
Oh, right on. Very, very cool. That's, a couple hours away, but that's definitely in the neighborhood, my friend.
Well, I used to come up all the time to like the Stone and the Omni and clubs like that and just hang out and see all you guys play, man.
Oh, that's so cool. It's a shame, I reside now in Los Angeles, but when I go up there and I check out the scene, it's nothing like the 80s because, we had so many places to play, like you mentioned the Stone and the Omni, and there were some other clubs, too, that are gone now. And I feel sorry for some of the bands that are trying to start up now because some of the opportunities that they have are limited as for, cool stages and nice big clubs and venues and all that kind of stuff. I've always looked back at that and feel very fortunate that we had so many cool places to play, and I really think it helped shape the scene then.
Sure. What was one of the cool things, too, about those clubs, man, was the fact that it wasn't so much who played there on what night. You could go up there any night, and you never knew who was going to play there. But it was cool that you could go up there as just a fan, and you could run into other guys from bands ranging from the littlest bands to, Metallica, just hanging out, having a drink, watching the Galactic Cowboys or somebody playing a set. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It was night after night. It didn't matter what night of the week it was. If there was somebody good playing, I was certainly over there trying to drink for free, get in trouble, and get laid and all that kind of stuff. And fortunately, that's what the 80s were all about, so I took full advantage of it.
Right on, man. Well, dude, it's been almost 20 years since Nothing Sacred came out, and, then you guys just seemingly splintered off, disappeared, however you want to put it. I guess the obvious place to start is what brought Laaz Rockit back together?
Well, we were all abducted by aliens, and we were touring out in outer space for the last 17 years, and that's the scoop for you guys. We haven't said that before in any other interviews, but no, actually, it was, around after Nothing Sacred had come out, and Aaron and myself, Aaron Jellum, the guitar player, were the only original members still playing, and the music business had sort of soured on the metal scene, so to speak, and we had, we've been doing it for Aaron and myself together for, 10 years, 11 years, since I was like a senior in high school, and it just became a bit of a struggle. Record companies we'd had bad experiences with most of the record companies that we had been with, and it just it came to a conclusion where other priorities in life sort of took over. People wanted to do some other things, and it just sort of sort of happened that way. The cool thing about our band is the fact that we all stayed bros. I mean, just because we weren't playing music together anymore, we still hung out all the time, you know, and a couple of guys got married and had kids, so of course we were in the weddings and, you know, played golf together and went to baseball, football games, parties, all that kind of stuff. It was, you know, we were the same people, we just weren't playing in the band anymore. And I think that that's why it was kind of easy for us to get back together, because there was no feuds, there was no baloney or bullshit, you know, between the band members, and I'm never going to play with that guy again, and that kind of stuff. And it's weird how music is very cyclical in nature, and we just we got an offer to do a reunion show in Europe about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, and it just sort of blew up from then. That was going to be our last show, and we were going to, you know, we got together simply for, you know, the ability to thank the fans. It wasn't a monetary thing. It wasn't an ego thing. It was to get back together to thank the people that supported us for so long. And with the new, you know, computer age and all these people being able to dig up the histories of the band and all this stuff, we were just so surprised at the whole new generation of young fans that are really into this music and into us. And so we decided, you know, we can take a little bit of time in our lives to try and continue this, because it was, you know, it was important to us to let people know what they meant to us.
Sure. Well, what is it these days that is bringing thrash as a genre back? It just seems like not only are the biggest bands of the day, you know, your Exodus, Death Angel, Testament, all are putting out just phenomenal music, some of the best that they've ever done, but then you've got this whole new breed as well putting out great stuff like Hatchet or Warbringer or, you know, Gamma Bomb. There's just so much thrash right now coming back, and it's not unlike all the other kinds of music that is trying to come back. The thrash stuff seems to have stayed the way it was, as far as there's no new influences and nobody's all of a sudden rapping or anything. It's just straight up thrash as it's always been. Why do you think that is?
Well, I've always felt that this particular type of heavy metal, and or so to speak, I mean, I'm not a big genre or dividing metal up, but the one thing about this form of thrash metal is the energy is just incredible. I mean, it's technically hard to play. You have to be a proficient musician to do it. And B, the energy it creates and the bond between the crowd and the band itself, it just, you know, continually surges throughout a show. It's a big draw, I believe, for young musicians, instead of just standing there and playing your instrument no matter how talented you are. And I think that there's a bit of recklessness, obviously. There's a bit of danger. There's a bit of, you know, especially with my band, because I never know if my bass player is going to run me over or knock me out, you know, the way he approaches the stage. And I think that the live show factor is a huge element of why it's come back, because people want us. They loved the fact that people are up there bringing it, you know, and they're sweating it out, and they're into it. It's almost like a UFC fight or something like that. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why this type of music is back in such a force. And also, I believe, in a way, you got another 20 years coming of it with all these new bands coming up that are essentially doing what we did 20 years ago.
Well, Michael, one of your Bay Area contemporaries came back this year with a really strong release. That would be Testament. And Chuck Billy at one point had said that Left for Dead is the best Laaz Rockit ever. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that is so cool of Chuck, you know, and we just did some dates with them earlier this year, and that's another compadre of ours that we've known since, you know, the discovery of Fire. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Bay Area bands is that all of us still know each other in and out of music, and we've spent a lot of time with each other in our personal lives as well, so it goes beyond just acquaintances. There are true friendships there. And I think that for us being away for so long, that there was probably a bit of doubt or a bit of who cares? Those guys have been around. I mean, have been out for so long. What could they possibly have to offer? And Chuck has always been a big backer, a big fan of ours, and he was just really excited for us. And he is a very, straightforward guy, and he just loves the record. And besides the fact we're paying him to say that, but no, I'm just kidding. But it's just it's part of those personal relationships where some people really probably thought that we weren't gonna bring it as much as we did on this record. But when we left the music business, we really felt that we hadn't done our best work or had been in control of our destiny in terms of production and record companies and all the kind of stuff that sort of screwed up the music business. And now that you can basically do it on your own and be left alone to produce the type of albums that you want to produce, I think that lent itself to being just such a positive for us, because we went about it at our own pace. We really slaved over the smallest details and paid attention to everything and had fun with it instead of this pressure or instead of this sort of what the record company thinks or any of that crap. And I think that's a big reason why Chuck would say something like that, is because and I believe that it is our best record, and I think that it's because we're more mature now and we knew what we wanted to do, and no one could sort of step on it and tell us we need to go a little bit in this direction or that direction. So, I mean, I appreciate Chuck all the time. I mean, we still hang out. I'm probably playing. I got to drive up north next week, and I think I'm going to play golf with he and Willie. So I'll thank him. I'll give him a couple strokes just for putting that on our record, of course.
Sure. Well, as Chris was saying earlier, the thrash bands of the Bay Area have really come back strong this year. Death Angel released a very strong record. Testament, of course. Exodus with the addition of their latest singer, Rob Dukes. He's just a monster on the stage, and you guys are making some noise out there again. What is your thoughts on that project that Chuck Billy put together a couple years ago, that Dublin Death Patrol?
Well, that was a lot of fun for them, and of course my bass player was an integral part of that project, and it was so funny because I actually went to their first gig down here in L.A. I live in Los Angeles. All the other guys still live in the Bay Area. But, you got like these 9 dudes on stage at one point, and just the utter chaos. But that was, something that I think is part of the resurgence of the Bay Area scene, is all these guys who have been bros for so long. They're not settled in their lives. Of course, they still are ambitious and all this stuff, but they wanted to do stuff together. And, I was, totally behind it. It was so funny to watch Willie play and not be on the stage with him. You know what I mean? That was the first time I had experienced that. And I thought it was a great project, and they paid homage to a lot of the bands that we all grew up on. And that was part of it, too. And they just wanted to go out, have some fun, play some shows, and be part of their whole bros attitude of it. They're all from Dublin. They all went to school together out there. That's Dublin, California, not Dublin, Ireland. And they just, they went out and did something that they wanted to do. And it was really cool to watch from the sidelines, because they're all my friends too. And it's something that I definitely endorse.
Sure. Well, Michael, looking at the new album, Left for Dead, it's obviously what it is. It's a throwback to what you guys have done your whole career, and how is it that you guys put this thing together, almost 20 years after the last record, and yet we're able to keep every bit of influence of anything outside of what you guys have always done out of the creative process? You know what I mean? It's been 20 years. It'd be easy to see if some of the newer down-tuning or the newer styles, but it really hasn't.
Well, I think that would have most likely, in my opinion and in Aaron's opinion, when we were writing the record, was we wanted to make it, sound like Laaz Rockit. We did not want to make it sound like a hybrid of what was popular or what was, what people are doing these days, just that cookie cutter mold of putting out something. People would have just dismissed it in that case. And we went in with very little expectations of what others were going to think of us, and didn't really pay that much attention to it because of the fact that we'd been under the radar for so long that we just sort of picked up where we left off from Nothing Sacred in terms of the writing style. And we wanted an album that portrayed what our band has always been about, and not about moving units or getting on this tour because of the style or that. Otherwise, none of that ever crept into our heads. And I think what did creep into our heads was a bit of we were very spontaneous in the studio. We actually wrote some of the stuff while we were recording, which we had never done before. You sit there and you write all the songs and you bash them out for 2 months and you go in the studio. And there was just a freshness to it that, in my opinion, hasn't been around for a while for a lot of bands because they're playing follow the leader. And for us, there's no leader to follow. We were following our own past, and it was a fairly quick process, a lot quicker than I would have imagined to come up with the songs, and we even left a couple off the record to possibly save down the line. And I just think we just wanted to be really true to ourselves. And one of the things that Aaron said to me early on was, no matter what happens with this, at least we'll have something to listen to. If nobody picks it up, if we only sell it on a website, if blah, 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 it'll be an album that we're happy with. And I think by doing that, made fans of thrash metal happy as well, because we stayed true to what we've always been doing.
Well, that's cool, Michael. Well, we're glad that Laaz Rockit is out there doing something, and you're keeping that Bay Area thrash vibe alive along with your contemporaries. And real quick, have you heard the new Metallica, and what's your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I heard it. I heard the whole thing in Holland back on, what was the day? It was like September 2nd before it came out, because I was at this promoter's house, and we had just played the Loud from the South festival with Soulfly. And it was funny because the French kid who had opened it up in France and started distributing it or downloaded it and spread it all over the world over the computer and stuff like that. This friend of the promoters had just picked it up, so even before it came out, he just came racing over to the promoter's house. I've got the new Metallica to play it, and to tell you the truth, I really like it. I don't pay as much attention to the music business as I did before, and now, of course, that we have something else out now, I'm sort of, trying to do the quick learn and the quick study of what's going on, being objective and being, non-judgmental about stuff. But I really enjoyed it. There's no, 4-minute, there's one shorter song, but it's not about, okay, these 4-minute songs and this sort of cookie cutter thing. I thought they went back to what they did on like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and those type of songs, that you write songs. You don't care how long they are. You don't care this, that, otherwise. You write by feel, and I think this album has that album has a lot of feel to it, and I like the production. I think it's a very strong sounding record, and I especially like what James is doing. I think I ran into him a few years ago. It was interesting, and we had a long conversation that, completely outside of music, and I've always liked that guy. And I'm really impressed with the whole thing. You're always going to get conflicting reports, but you can mark me down as someone who is impressed by it.
All right, Michael. Well, we appreciate you taking some time here to talk to us on the Classic Metal Show. Where can people find out about Laaz Rockit? You got a website out there, MySpace, something like that?
We have both, my friend. If you go to www.laazrockit.com, that'll take you to the website, which also has the MySpace links, and you can get in touch with us there, and we, have news and pics and discography and all that kind of stuff. Police blotter. Well, no, actually, that hasn't happened for a while, which is good. But all that kind of stuff. And, get in touch with us, and we'll get in touch with you. And once again, I can't thank you guys enough for taking an interest in us after all this time. And we're really looking forward to doing some East Coast U.S. dates, after the new year comes around. And Cleveland was always a great spot. I mean, I loved that place when we played there. Is Peabody still around?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, excellent. Cleveland was always super cool. And I can't wait to get back there, man. It's a great city and a city that knows its music, that's for sure.
Excellent, Michael. All right, Michael, well, before we let you go, we need to ask you the traditional classic metal show question. How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
I'd have to say this. We toured with them in 1986 in Europe. And I'd have to say this. This is an interesting point. I remember I was about 21 years old then, and it was our first time in Europe. And to tell you the honest truth, I was like, we're opening for Motorhead in Europe. We're going to get killed. And from the very first show, everybody just, went crazy for us and all this kind of stuff. And I think Lemmy came up to me and Aaron and, the band, and we're just shit-faced and just partying all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And so excited that after the first show, it's like, hey, we think we can do this, And Lemmy was kind of the guy that came to us and said, great show, you guys were great, and kind of looked at us like, but act like you've been there before. You know what I mean? This is a long process. Make sure you get up tomorrow and do it again the same way you're doing it. But, act like you've been there before. And I don't mean that in an egotistical or an aloof sense, but he made me very aware of what it takes to have some longevity in this business. And he's a very well-spoken guy, as you guys probably know. He's very well-read, and he's a history buff and all this stuff. And for someone like that, of that just iconic stature, to take the time to, put his hand on my shoulder and say, look, mate, you guys have what it takes, but, there's a couple of little things that, you need to take care of this on a daily basis and basically act like you've been there before and don't take it for granted. And I think that's always stuck with me. And one thing that I always say to my band, too, and just to remind them, things get a little crazy, but, the stage is a privilege. It is not a right. I don't care who you are, if you're the Rolling Stones or whatever, but you got to approach the stage as a privilege. And I think Lemmy certainly ingrained that in me, and I thank him for it to this day.
Excellent. Well, it's the return of Laaz Rockit. They have a new CD out called Left for Dead. Go pick that thing up. Go visit them over there at their website. And as a tradition here, Michael, we always let the artist pick a closing track and tell us a quick story about it.
Wow, a closing track. Let me see. Why don't we go to you got UFO, Strangers in the Night?
Sure.
All right. How about Lights Out?
Excellent.
Yeah, and I would say that was one of the songs one of my older brother, who's a musician himself, turned me on to when I was about 12 or 13, and just seeing the album and listening to it and listening to the response of the crowd sort of made me put my baseball glove and my soccer ball and my football and my basketball back in the closet and say, you know what, I think I want to do this instead.
Excellent. All right, as I said, pick up the new Laaz Rockit, Left for Dead, and by request to Michael, this is UFO with Lights Out exclusively here. Thanks for checking out the Best of the Classic Metal Show. You can tune into the Classic Metal Show live every Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern, exclusively at www.theclassicmetalshow.com.
The Classic Metal Show.